possibility of an earlier election occurring here in Canada becoming increasingly more likely as time progresses, I guess it's time for a lesson on how elections work in my home country, as I haven't made enough videos on Canada and political geography already. Canadian elections, just like down south in the US, are generally held every 4 years, although the Prime Minister is able to request the dissolution of Parliament at any time during their term, which triggers a snap election. And unlike in the US, the Prime Minister does not have any specified term limits, meaning they can run as many times as they want, although they aren't technically running to be Prime Minister at all. Canada's government is a parliamentary system, meaning that instead of directly voting for our head of government, we instead vote for who to represent us in the lower house of the Canadian Parliament, the House of Commons. As of the upcoming 2025 election, the number of members in the House of Commons, simply called Members of Parliament or MPs, is 343, all of whom represent a Canadian federal electoral district, more commonly known as a riding or constituency. Ridings are redrawn every 10 years based on recent census statistics and are generally of equal population. In order to run as an MP, one must be at least 18 years old and have an established residency in Canada, but quote, not necessarily in the constituency where he or she is seeking election. Let's pretend that I am running to be a member of Parliament as a member of the fictional Crimson Party, and I am representing Halifax West. How do I win this seat? It's simple. All I need to do is receive the most votes in that riding, and it doesn't even have to be a majority of votes. If I receive the most votes, I win that riding and receive the representative seat in the House of Commons. In order for a party to win an election and form the government, they simply need to win the most seats in the House of Commons, and in order to win a majority, they simply need to win more than half of the seats. Otherwise, their government will be considered a minority government. But what's the difference between the two? A majority government has more than half of the seats in the parliament and are able to pass legislation independently, whereas minority governments have the most seats but less than half, and need assistance from other political parties in order to pass laws. Now that I have gotten that out of the way, let's suppose the Crimson Party wins a majority in the House of Commons, winning 200 of the 343 seats. Out of these 200 Crimson MPs, which one becomes the Prime Minister following an election? It's simple. The leader of the party that wins the most seats becomes the Prime Minister. In this case, since I am the leader of the Crimson Party, I become the Prime Minister of Canada. Interestingly enough, the Prime Minister of Canada is not required to additionally be a member of Parliament, but for political reasons, it is expected that they win the seat they are representing in the House of Commons, as otherwise they would not be able to participate in parliamentary sessions. This has actually happened before in the past, the most recent of which occurring in 1984. After Liberal leader and Prime Minister of Canada Pierre Trudeau resigned, this triggered a leadership election in which a man named John Turner won, allowing him to be appointed as Prime Minister of Canada despite not being a member of Parliament at the time, last having a seat in 1976. If a case like this occurs, the Prime Minister can become an MP during their tenure in two ways. The first is by seeking a seat during a by-election, which may be called in a riding if the position becomes vacant for several reasons, including the death, retirement, or resignation of the incumbent. The other is by seeking a seat in the next federal election and hoping your party still wins most seats. In Turner's case, he chose the latter of the two options in the federal election held later that year, and although he won the seat he ran for, the Liberals were defeated in a landslide by Brian Mulroney's Progressive Conservatives.